Yes, my dear friends, I am Anand Prakash. I am going to teach you the making of the global world. This is the third chapter of the history. The making of a global world, the pre-modern world today we would like to discuss first of all. What do you mean by the pre-modern world? Now, we can say this is the 21st century or the 20th century. In the last decade of the 20th century, that very word was called the modern word. But we would like to discuss about the pre-modern world. What happened in the pre-modern world? Like today, that is today is we are nowadays leading with the modern world with globalization. And earlier there was not the globalization, but in spite of that fact, so many person were leaving their places from one place to another place to the Silk Route linked with the world. The Silk Route was that route which was connected between the Europe and China and going through the northwestern region of the India. And through that route, the trade used to happen. What was the trade actually? The trade of the silk, the trade of the pottery, the trade of the spices from Southeast Asia, that used to occur through this Silk Route. And due to what reason the people were moving from one place to another place, that was the reason knowledge, opportunity, the spiritual fulfillment, and escape persecution. To escape persecution means, suppose the some group of the people, they were inflicted with some type of the operations on them, then they decided to leave that very place. This is called the persecution. And they carried goods, money, values, skills, ideas, invention, and even germs and diseases. First of all, we would like to discuss about the goods money. Through the trade, what has happened? When person move through the voyage or through this silk route, that is through the land route from one place to another place, when the trading occurs, what was the currency on those days? Through the Kodi, they were um, selling their things, and they were buying other things from the other country person. That selling and buying was occurs through the currency of कोडी. कहते हैं ना कोडियों के भाव ये चीज मिलती है. Then values and skills. What do you mean by skills? uh, the Indians were moving to other countries. When they were spreading their religion, etc. This is called the values and skills. Skills means anybody who invented at his place. Suppose the plow has been invested in India, that certain plow may be used on these agricultural land. If the invention was made by one person, so through he may spread his skill by growing from one country to another country. And we will later on discuss about the germs and diseases, etc. Now the food traveled. How the food travel from food travel means when the person were moving from one place to another place, what they used to do, they propagate that certain things had been taken at the place. Suppose the soya potato, these certain things in the Sicily island, one get the Sicily was situated in it is one of the island in the Italy where one takes any food. When that fellow Yet that a group of the those who went there, when they propagate about the food which they took in the Sicily, and they spread this news that such and such food has been taken in the Sicily. This is called the propagation of the food. Now, these potatoes, groundnut, maize, tomato, chili, sweet potatoes, these are the certain cultivated crops. They were cultivated in the Europe, and they came in Asia and China, etc. In China, in these, that is Asian countries, 500 years ago. Yani before 500 ago, our ancestors did not know about the potato crop, about the soya crop, about the groundnut crop, about the maize and tomatoes and chili and sweet potato crops. Now, one of the interesting thing happened in the Great Iris. Iris is situated near the England. What happened? The very poor fellows who were growing the potatoes, that potatoes were the staple diet for them. When for the two consecutive years, that is in between 1845 to 1849, that is mid of the 19th century, what happens? In three or two successive years, the crop damaged. They could not tolerate this thing because that was the staple diet for them. So they died due to starvation, and double of the person left that very place because they did not got the staple diet due to the damage of that very crop. Now we would like to discuss the conquest disease and the trade in America. When America was cut off with regular contact with the rest of the world in the mid 16th century, what happened there? The uh, two countries people, they went to the America. What they did, they want to go there for exploring certain metals, precious metals, that we may find something good for our exploration. So they went there. When they went there, they had to face the persons of the native places of America. So instead of using the military weapon to enter into the America, what they did nothing except waiting for some time. What happened to the another person who came of the American citizens who came in contact with these exploring people, or those people who came from the Spain, etc., for the trading and colonial reason? The smallpox is spreaded in them, as they were in herd community, because they they were confined with that very diseases earlier. It means they could not again occurred with the same disease. When that disease was occurred with these new fellows, they become very timid persons. They could not offend them. So without using the conventional weapon, they paved the way of conquest. They got the victory. Now in the 18th century, what happened? Until the well into the 18th century, China and India were among the world's richest country. From the 15th century, China retreated isolation. It means the status of economic status of the China and India were good up to the 15th century. Then after the China were isolated, it keeps itself away from rest of the other countries. Now, we would like to discuss about the world economy takes shape. How the world economy took the shape. The world economy, there are three things were flowing on those days. One is the trade, the second is the person, and third is the one is the trade, one is the person, and third is the capital. That is the money. They were flowing from one place to other place in the 19th century. And before that, what happened? The government also restricted the import. Acha, after the flowing of the labor and all these three moment, what happened in in England? In the 18th century, the England become first of all in the Europe. The England become the industrialized country, and suddenly due to becoming the industrialized country, due to the sudden increase of their population, there was the need of corn, that is need of the wheat and something staple diet for them. When there was a dire need, what happened? They have to import, government have to import corn from the other countries. When government have to import the corn from other countries, when the corn was imported from the other countries, when corn was imported from the other countries, those who were living in England, having their own land, now they make demand that this import of corn should be stopped at once. We would like to fulfill their their demand of this corn. We want to grow it. We want to grow it in our own land. Now they make the demand for stopping the import so that they can grow corn in their own land. Then what the parliament people do? They stop they stop the import of corn. When they stop the import of corn, this is called corn law. So why the corn law come into existence? Due to the demand of the landed people, the corn law came into existence. Later on, they were not able to fulfill this demand of the people, because due to industrialization in the city, there was the growth of the population. When they could not meet out the cope with the situation, they could not meet out the they could not complete their demand of wheat. Then what happened? The industrialist, the industrialist, industrialist and the labor, they made hue and cry. But what happened? Why the import has been stopped? Then that corn law have to abolished. That corn law have to abolished by the parliamentary. Why the corn law was abolished? Due to the demand of the industrialist labor, because they could not keep the pace with the situation. They could not meet out their demand fully. This, first of all, the corn law was made, then it was abolished. Why? After completing this drama in the village side, they all become unemployed. Who become unemployed? Without work. They all agriculturists become without work. Then they have to move from England. Their they have to move from their villages, and they have to seek some work in overseas. Overseas means they have to live the England and England, their country also. So they fought in the city and migrated overseas. They fought in either they go to the cities. There also they could not find any work. Then they migrated to overseas around the world. That is in Eastern Europe, Russia, America, and Australia. Why they have to move Eastern Europe, Russia, America? Because they could not find any work because they were busy. Earlier, they were when the Cold War was come into existence, they were busy in agriculture. But when the Cold War abolished, they could not stay here at the in their villages. Why they could not stay here? Because there was no work. Then they have to move to the Eastern Europe, Russia, America, and Australia. Lands were cleared and food production expanded to meet the British demand. It means, again, the other countries regularly import the corn for completing their demand. Now the British Indian government built a net of now what happened in those up to now that was the case of the England. Now we would like to discuss about the British India. What happened in British India? The British Indian government built a network of irrigation canal in the part of Punjab. What was the reason for making the irrigation canal? Because Punjab was having the semi-desert area. Due to semi-desert area, um, the agriculture, the peasant could not grow the good crop of the this corn, the good crop of the wheat, good crop of the cotton. So British make the arrangement of the canals in Punjab. For cotton, British textile mill depend on colonies. Agriculture products such as the wheat, cotton, and mineral such as coal were traded on global scale. These all three things, that is wheat, cotton, and minerals, and especially minerals of the coal, were traded to global scale. So this was the occurrence of British India. Now, 19th century came. There was the flow of trade, second the flow of labor, third the movement of capital. Due to these three flows, there was the role of technology also played important because in the 19th century in the Europe and Western countries, there was the expansion of the railways. Steam ship was manufactured instead of old innovative steam ship invented. Telegraph played the major role, and larger ship helped move food for cheaply and quickly from far away far to final product. Now here, yeah, just I want to discuss one thing before you. What happened when the when the steam ship was invented? There was the need of the food and other commodities in England because it became the industrial country, and this industrial country workers were earning lot of money. So there was the need of the certain type of food, especially the meat, etc. So that was imported from Australia, America, and other countries, and Eastern Europe. So that first of all the animals were kept in the ship and they were sent to England for the slaughtering. But this faced a lot of problem because when they were imported from other country to the England, many died, many animals died. They could not get, and many become sick. They could not get the good meat after slaughtering of ill animals. So then one type of the sheep that having the frozen, that is the frozen sheep, was invented. In that frozen sheep, the slaughtered meat was imported from other country to England. It means in the Europe, due to this frozen sheep, they could able to get the fresh sheep because that was in weight near about 1/10 of the proper animal, so they could get the frozen sheep at cheap price. Now, what happened? We would also like to discuss what happened in other part of the world. That is in Africa. The many countries they established their colonies there. First of all, only the England and France they established the colonies in Asian countries. Now in Africa, more than two countries. That is other European also countries also they established their colonies in Africa. Now, when they entered into the Africa, they faced some problem there because they could not attract the people for the wages. What was the reason behind it? They were least interested to these Africans were least interested to do some work of the mines as well as the plantations of the colonial country. They tried their best. When they established their government, they tried their best to call them, but they denied. We have other source of earnings. We have all these cattle, we reared all these cattle, and we have the agriculture food. We are not in need of the more money, so that we would not like to um, do the do labor work along with you. Then what happened? For calling them and for recruiting and retaining the labor, that is, they should come and they should stay us. They introduced the inheritance law. What this inheritance law says that the eldest son will be given the land of his father, and rest of the other issues will not be given any land to them. To do this, due to this reason, except the eldest one, all may come for the labor. But um, after giving this, after existing this law, they could not able to attract the African people. But in the 1880, what happened? The rinderpest arrived. Rinderpest is one of the disease in which near about 90% cattle died. How they died? They become paralyzed and they died. And it was carried by the infected cattle imported from the British Asia. And disease spread across the Africa like wildfire, killing about 90% of the cattle. And after that, the African automatically come in contact with these fellow. Now, we would like to discuss about the Indian labor migration from the India and China. 100 and Indian laborers went to work on the plantation in mines, in roads, railway construction projects. They were required to stay with their employers for 5 years. Now, first of all, we would like to discuss why these Indian labor. First of all, this is the definition of Indian labor. Those laborers who had to stay in the plantation farm for at least 5 years with the employer. They are called indentured labor. Why there is need to migrate it from the India? Because the situation of the peoples were leading the very pathetic life. So many become the unemployed, landless people. Those people do not have the work in the village. They have to move from India to another country due to the economic reason. So most of the came from the eastern UP, Bihar, and central India, where there was many people were facing the lot of unemployment. The cottage industries declined. Why the cottage industry declined? The weavers could not find any type of the work because most of the cloth were imported from the England. Land rent rose because all these colonial government, they also increases their land rent. They were not able to pay the land rent, rose land rent, that is increased land rent. Lands were cleared for mines and plantation because many colonial government also started use of the mine and plantations. Due to this reason, they have to face many to migrate in search of the work. Where they got the work? When the agents are seeking them, oh, we will provide the work in some Caribbean land, etc., where you have to move from here. You will certainly get the job there. What type of the job you will find there? They have not disclosed this thing. They had not disclosed, and they did not disclose what are the hard duties they have to do after reaching the Caribbean island. Anyhow, after 1 or 2 months of the voyage, Samudri Yatra ke baad mein they could able to reach the Trinidad, Guyana, and Suriname, Mauritius and Fiji. So this Trinidad, Guyana, and Suriname is the Caribbean island situated near America, and Mauritius and Fiji, they were not situated in America. When they reach there, they become the hopeless. That we should not come to seek the job here because we have to do near about 10 to 12 hours duty, and after completing our duty, we will get the very small food, unnourished food. The worker discovered their own way of surviving. Oh, in what way we will survive here? Own way of surviving means we could not return back to India. Now, what we should do? So we should pass our time in one or the other way. So what type of the creative work they sought? Some joined Moharram procession, chutney music developed in Trinidad and Guyana. Anyhow, after getting the very little amount in their extra time, they joined the Moharram procession. That is the procession started by these Shia and Sunnis, and the chutney music which are developed in Trinidad, Guyana. Anyhow, they have to seek such type of the job for their livelihood. Now, some notable descendants of these labors, including the Nobel Prize winning writer V.S. Nepal, West Indies cricketer Sivanarayan Chandra Paul, and the Ram Naresh Sarwan, the indentured labor system was abolished in 1921. Why it was abolished? Because it was one of the very inhuman profession adopted by these very petty and miserable fellows. So that due to this inhuman behavior, that indentured labor system was abolished. Now, at the time of abolition of this indentured laborship, the war comes. In the year 1914, what happened? The first war began. In between the two allies, the allies were the Britain, France, Russia, later joined by the United States. On the opposite side, there was the Central Power, German, Austria, Hungary, and Ottoman Turkey. The people were hoping that up to the in the 1914 up to the 25 December, the war may be over. But war did not over. It lingered on up to the 4 years. The scale of the death and destruction was enormous. So many died. Near about 9 million people died and 20 million injured. And war also transformed the United States from being an international debtor to international creditor. What does it mean? In the war, Britain took lot of money, lot of the loan from United States because United States joined later on. So after taking the lot of loan from England, this Britain become an international debtor. Who were earlier creditor, पहले जो पैसा देने वाला था अब बेचारा ऋणी हो गया. Now, entrepreneurs abroad. That is the first flow of the trade. Second is the flow of labor, and third is the. Now we would like to discuss about something about the entrepreneurs abroad. In what way so many people who were having the very capital amount with them, those industrialists, how they went to other countries for doing the trade, colonialism and global system, and what happened in those days. Tariff was imposed on the cloth import into Britain. What was the situation of the India in those days? We are discussing here. The tariff were imposed on the cloth import. Britain after the war, when it became the debtor, how it can get more money? So the tariff were imposed on cloth import into Britain so that the other finished goods may not be used in Britain. As a result, export of manufactured goods from India declined rapidly while export of the raw material increased. What does it mean? When the tariff were imposed, those weavers who were making the cloth, who were preparing the cloth, they could not sold their cloth in Britain due to the tariff. Then it means what was the trend in those days? Export of the raw material increase. That is, the cotton were day by day increase from 1812 to 1871. The share of the raw cotton export rose from 5% to 30%. In those days, one unique thing also happened. India became exporter of the opium to China. To the Calcutta port, China was sent by the British India. This opium was sent to the China. Then Britishers in return, they get the tea, which allowed Britain to finance tea and other import from China. Thus, Britain had a trade surplus with India. What do you mean by trade surplus? It means the Britain was able to do more import than the export from the British India. It means Britain get the trade plus amount. The value of the British export in India was much higher than the value of British import from India. Now I have chosen all type of the questions, especially the MCQ, VSA, SA1, SA2. Now these are certain MCQ. First of all, we would discuss when did the first MNC begin and many more were established. MNC means multinational company. When they were established in the year 1920, and their expansion did in the year 1950 and 60. This is written in the NCERT book. Now, what do you understand by new international economic order? New international economic order was organized by those countries who were not being gained by the IMF and World Bank. Then, due to this reason, they did not dependent on the Western countries and developed countries. They started to having their separate group. This group is called the Group of 77. And after becoming that very group, they demanded America, they urged America to purchase over all goods and all goods at not at cheap price but at the increased price. Now the IMF, International Monetary Fund and World Bank are referred to as financial conference in 1944 held. It was held in Hemisphere, USA. This in the Britain would this happened. It means all the above refer to these IMF and World Bank. Now the IMF and World Bank commenced financial operation in the year 1947. It started the operation, but after operating of the financial due to of IMF and World Bank, after the Bretton Woods Conference in the 1947, it was practically started. When it was practically started, the lot of the Western countries and Japan could get uh, very good profit, but all other developing and poor countries could not get any profit. Now the second world war, the Axis power war. Axis power were Germany, Japan, and Italy. When did gunny bag export? Acha, what do this gunny bag was exported in the year 1930, but that export was collapsed in the year 1935. In the 1930, what happened? Those people who were engaged in the gunny bag export, when suddenly it was collapsed, they got very loss, very much loss. They have to main, उनको रोना पड़ा, चिल्लाना पड़ा, अरे हमारे साथ क्या हो गया. Now according to John Keynes, economist, how did India promote the global economic recovery? Now when there was the deep depressions in the year 1930, these Indian peasants were in loss. They have to first of all sell their land. They have to solve their valuable, that is gold and other precious metal, for their livelihood, because they did not have any money, they did not have any wheat and any agriculture product with them. For the two ends meet, दो वक्त की रोटी के लिए उनको अपना गोल्ड बेचना पड़ा. तो जॉन केन्स ने ये कहा कि इंडिया ने एक तरह से इकोनॉमिक रिकवरी जो 1930-35 थी, उसके अंदर एक अपना अहम रोल किया था. Now the restrictions of the import of the corn in England during the industrialization is called the Corn Law. It has been discussed earlier. The flow of Chinese pottery, spices, gold, silver, along with the culture exchange occurred through which route it is it was trade were occurred through the Silk Route. Now VSA, where and when did the potato famine occur? It has earlier discussed. Okay, these fellow who were without getting this potato, they died due to the starvation in Ireland. For what Sicily Island popular? For the pasta, it was popular. Who forced the abolition of corn law in England? For the abolition of corn law, the industrialists and workers, they forced for abolition of corn law. Which crop was cultivated when irrigation canal transport semi-desert cotton and wheat? Why were tariff imposed on the cloth import into the Britain in early 19th century? Why were tariff imposed? So that the other countries, people, entrepreneur cannot enter into England for importing their finished goods. That was the reason. How did a small pox signal God's blessing for the colonists? Because colonists need not to use another other type of the arsenal. Due to the smallpox signal, they could got the victory over these American people. Which three flows dominated in the world? Earlier it has been discussed. That is trade, worker, and money. People and money. वर्कर को ह्यूमन रिसोर्सेज भी कह सकते हैं. वी कैन से ह्यूमन रिसोर्सेज. नाउ इन 1970, why were refrigerator ship preferred over ordinary ship from America to Europe? Because the slaughtered meat can be shifted from one end, from the original end to the destination. Due to this reason, refrigerated ships were preferred. What was the profit of Britain of importing opium from India? Benefit was the Britain that Britain would able to get the tea at free of cost from the China. Why did Britain become an international debtor after the First World War? Because that Britain took lot of loan from America. Now, as a second type, that is 7 to 10 lines answer. How were thousands of the men and women thrown out of work in England when the corn law was scrapped? It has been discussed earlier. Explained in detail the assembly line adaptation by Ford in manufacture of the T model Ford car. What happened in America in the year 1920? The Ford took one of the experiment with the workers. He started to increase his T model of American car, of his Ford car. Why he could able to increase his model car manufacturing? In what way he increased his production? He used the assembly line. Assembly lines means uh, what he copied. He copied the slaughter type of the industries. The assembly line is such where the no worker can stand idle. सुस्त नहीं रह सकता है. In the assembly line, they have to do the regular work. He increased their wages डबल या फिर और क्या कर दिया? What he did, he he directed them that you cannot make the trade union and you could not go for the strike, etc. After what happened, the worker could able to get the good wages from this company, and the manufacturing were increased drastically. The hire purchase system, which was used to see that so many people are purchasing all the electric goods, refrigerator, etc., the hire purchase system, that is EMI, near about half or one fourth of the cost is given at the first time. Then after the through the EMI, um, they can get the goods at their home. After that, they could complete their transaction within 1 year, 2 year, or more years. So many people who want to purchase the houses and flats, they may enter into the hire purchase. That is, hire purchase system was also started in this time. The hire purchase means one who want to purchase any goods which have the very high price, they may do near about or one fifth amount on first installment, and then after rest of the money may be given in 10 to 20 years. Especially the higher purchase of this is the system higher purchase of these flats and houses. And for some electric goods, they need to pay for the 1 or 2 years. It is established to complete their transaction. This is called the higher. That higher purchase system was began in America in 1920. At the time of this, the time has changed. There was the Great Depression have to be faced in between 1929 and 30. That is, the other countries people as other countries government could not able to repay the money to America. They could not return it, and there was the very miserable situation occurred in the year 1929-30. What happened in this Great Depression? What happened? America could become also the victim of that very depression. How it became that very depression? Those who purchase lot of things through the higher purchase from this country, higher purchase, they could not able to repay the lended money, the borrowed money, and many industries Many banks, these collapsed due to the Great Depression. As and when the questions, as and when we discuss about the depressions, Great Depressions in the whole of the world, it means suddenly these peasants who get the crop at the time of the harvest, they could not get the good money. At the time of the harvest, they could not sell their product, harvest product. This is the first and foremost cause at the time of Great Depression. At the time of Great Depression. What other things happened? Many industries, banks collapsed. And in those days, US America has to use the tariff so that another important thing cannot enter into the America. Write the detailed about the India and the Great Depressions. I have given you idea of this fifth. Now this is the end of this chapter. Thank you.